So here's the jaw-dropping moment. As the dust settled, an obscure institution, unearthed by investigative journalists, holds a staggering amount of influence over global markets, an alleged grip tighter than that of any sovereign nation. But how does a small nexus of power manage to dictate the trends and waves that affect us all? The story begins many decades ago with the Bretton Woods Conference of 1944, a critical meeting of 730 delegates from all 44 Allied nations of World War II held in New Hampshire. This summit laid the foundations for the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank, two institutions aiming to oversee international financial stability. Fast forward to today, these institutions continue to wield incredible influence. The IMF, with its 190 member countries and special drawing rights valued at $650 billion, lends to nations in fiscal turmoil with strings attached. The World Bank disburses around $60 billion annually, underwriting economic development and poverty alleviation. But who or what truly guides their hands? Intrigue deepens upon considering the Bank for International Settlements, BIS, often dubbed the Central Bank for Central Banks. Headquartered in Basel, Switzerland, the BIS fosters monetary and financial stability, ostensibly sitting above the political fray. With 63 member central banks, from the Federal Reserve to the People's Bank of China, and assets totaling over $340 billion, it's a hidden linchpin in the financial architecture. However, it's remarkably not just these formal institutions that hold sway. Holding companies and investment management firms, many unfamiliar names outside finance circles, manage assets worth trillions, effectively shaping market movements and future investments. BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, administers around $9.5 trillion of assets under management, a sum higher than the GDP of every country except the United States and China. Vanguard and State Street follow closely, commanding $7.2 trillion and $4 trillion, respectively. Through their investments, these firms possess significant shares in the leading corporations of the world, not as rulers in the machinations of commerce, but as stewards in the allocation of global capital. For the skeptics, one may think, what about governments, the actual policymakers and enforcers? Certainly, economies are molded by national fiscal policies. However, the political stage is increasingly seen through the lens of influence rather than outright control. Consider the dialogue sparked by the World Economic Forum, WEF, whose annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland, gathers the world's elite, the CEOs, political leaders, academics, and cultural figures. The WEF fosters collaboration towards shared global goals, a noble endeavor on paper. Behind the discussions, though, the informal networks form alliances and direct the blueprint for industries, from technology to renewable energy. Here's the twist. True power lies not in these entities alone, but in the intersections and alliances between them. The interlocking directorates, shared ownership structures, and overlapping influence create a complex web. It's like a vast game of chess, where strategic moves echo across nations and industries. Dive deeper with me into this intricate tapestry, where the international flow of capital is like a river guided by unseen hands. It's crucial to understand not merely who wields the power, but how their subtle maneuvers direct an ever-evolving global economy. For example, central banks, while ostensibly subject to government oversight, operate with significant autonomy. The Federal Reserve's quantitative easing measures, which injected approximately $4.5 trillion into the economy post-2008 financial crisis, was not just an American endeavor, but a ripple effect resonating worldwide as currencies adjusted in response. The interconnectedness becomes apparent when you consider global trade dynamics. Multinational corporations, driven by their fiduciary duty to maximize shareholder value, often play nations against each other for favorable taxation and regulatory environments. How many of you know that Apple, despite being an American company, continues to stockpile billions in revenue offshore? This brings us to a delicate impasse. Sovereign debt, a tool wielded by countries, often hangs as a sword of Damocles over economies. Countries like Japan carry debts exceeding 200% of their GDP, while the U.S. sits at around 130%, raising questions about the feasibility of such fiscal trajectories. Rising polarization in global trade complicates matters further. Consider the current U.S.-China tariffs, costing American businesses some $46 billion in 2020 alone. Although governments may appear as architects of this tension, it's the coalitions of corporations and trade groups lobbying behind the curtain that urge these moves. How do emerging technologies fit into this narrative, you may ask? Think about the